After Bishop Carlton Pearson's sudden and sad death, no one talked about his impact up until now. Gina Gauthier, his separated ex-wife, has come forward out of the blue with shocking news that no one saw coming. There were secrets, pain that was kept inside, and a story that the church didn't want to be told. What she said just shook the church world to its core. I promise you that you won't want to miss what she said. Carlton Pearson was a bishop, a visionary, and a man who didn't mind going against religious rules. He was once one of the most influential speakers in the American gospel world, but behind his huge stage and worldwide reach, there was a storm building in his personal life. Gina Gauthier, his ex-wife, has finally spoken out after years of silence to tell her side of the story now that he has died too soon. We thought we knew a lot about the man, the church, and the fall from grace until she tells us something new. We're going to look very closely at how a gospel kingdom fell apart in this video. There are heartbreaking statements and secrets that are kept behind closed doors. It was a spiritual insult, and Gina's silence hurt people emotionally. This is the part of Bishop Pearson's life that hasn't been told. We're going to talk about the dark truth about their troubled marriage. In an emotional voice memo that she just shared, Gina says the church tried to hide how Carlton's controversial teachings may have affected not only his job but also his family. This has shocked everyone. For real, you won't believe what took place behind the scenes. Now this is where things get interesting. Before he got into trouble, Bishop Carlton Pearson was a rising star in the gospel world. He had charm, conviction, and a message that drew thousands of people to him. Pearson was born in 1953 in San Diego, California. He grew up in a strict Pentecostal home and later became Oral Roberts' right-hand man. There was something spiritual about him that made him stand out from other preachers. His Higher Dimensions Evangelistic Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, had grown into a megachurch kingdom by the 1980s and 1990s. A lot of people came to his sermons, and he hung out with both gospel royalty and government power brokers. He held huge Azusa conferences, had shows on TBN, and was friends with everyone from T.D. Jakes to Donnie McClurkin. But as his following grew, so did his worries. At some point, Carlton Pearson started to doubt the basic ideas he used to teach. As Pearson watched video of the Rwandan genocide one night, he said that God told him that hell wasn't real. In that moment, what he called the gospel of inclusion was born, and that's where things began to go wrong. The heads of the church turned their backs. He was called a heretic by groups. His congregation shrank, his finances went bad, and longtime friends officially pulled away from him. The public didn't know, though, how hard all of this was on his wife. Behind the scenes, his wife Gina Gauthier, who used to work as a life guide and political aide, was calmly weathering the storm. As the church turned against Carlton, it put a lot of stress on his family. They don't tell you this part. While everyone talked about his religion, the woman who was slowly fading in the background got no attention, until now. She was a force in her own right before she became famous as the wife of a controversial bishop. Gina is a smart woman who has a lot of experience in coaching, psychology, and political planning. She used to work as an assistant in the Clinton White House. More than just a pastor's wife, she was. She was smart, confident, and strong. Many people thought she and Carlton Pearson would be a great match when they got married in 1993. Pearson was a powerful spiritual leader, and she was a smart, intelligent woman who knew a lot about politics. But as their relationship developed behind the religious glitz, Gina began to see a very different side of things. Many people say that Gina was quiet and shy during most of Bishop Pearson's years in service. She didn't talk in public very often and never questioned her husband's beliefs in front of the crowd, and kept up the image of a devoted and helpful wife. It wasn't her choice to be quiet, though, as she recently said, "I had to stay alive." After Bishop Pearson's death, Gina made a moving confession that blew everyone away. Not only did the church's rules keep her quiet for years, but so did the man himself. Gina says that as Carlton's fame grew, she was generally ignored, told to stay out of the way, and told not to question his choices, whether they were religious or personal. Gina said, "I was trained to be quiet," in an interview video that went viral on social media. "You have a nice smile, wave, and look nice. But when the lights go out, the ministry's image rests on your shoulders, and no one ever checks to see if you're okay," she says that as Carlton taught more unpopular ideas and was turned down by many evangelicals, the problems didn't just happen outside of Carlton's church but also inside it. Their home turned into a war zone of deep betrayal, spiritual conflict, and emotional chaos. Gina gave the impression that she didn't agree with Carlton on many religious issues, not just about hell. This made her feel more and more alone. She even said that he might have used spiritual manipulation to make choices that made her feel helpless and unimportant. I didn't say anything about one of the most powerful parts of what she said out of respect. But being quiet can lock you up. I have nothing left to lose now that years have passed. According to Gina, their marriage became less solid as Carlton's religious exile got worse. She says that counseling was turned down a lot of the time, important problems were ignored, and emotional neglect became the standard. She said she was emotionally and spiritually starved, and that she lived in the shadow of a guy that everyone either admired or feared. And what really broke her heart? She says that no one, not the church, not her friends, not even the people who used to call her First Lady, ever asked her side of the story. He died years ago, and now she's finally telling the truth, years after they got a divorce. But the next part will shock you even more. Some of Pearson's closest friends were shocked when Gina hinted at a deeper betrayal. She didn't just talk about mental distance and manipulation. There were clear signs of trouble in Gina Gauthier's marriage to Bishop Carlton Pearson by the time she filed for divorce in 2015. They were very open, but even back then, most people didn't know how bad the cuts really were. It wasn't just about having different beliefs or the stress of being a minister. Gina's most recent statements say that the betrayal she went through was much more personal and devastating. In a statement that has since gone viral in gospel and church opinion circles, Gina hinted at multiple affairs, times when she says she found out Carlton was emotionally and physically cheating on her, even when he was at the top of his spiritual leadership game. As time goes on, you start to see that your husband has turned into a man of his own faith. At one point, she said, "I wasn't just dealing with church hurt, I was dealing with heartbreak at home." She talks about getting text messages late at night, hearing rumors from people who work at the church, and even seeing what she calls unholy connections that make her very uncomfortable, both as a wife and as a woman who is watching her marriage fall apart. Gina was polite and didn't directly name anyone, but she made it clear that she thinks there were people close to her husband, even in the church, who helped him get away with his sins and covered them up. She says these weren't just random people or offers, but planned affairs that were kept secret so they wouldn't be questioned because of Carlton's standing and power. Even scarier is Gina's claim that she was often lied to when she tried to talk about these problems. People told her she was too emotional, not spiritual enough, or jealous of the church, she says. She said that this strategy made her question her own reality and was a form of psychic abuse that slowly broke her down. He was the bishop for everyone. I was the woman who slept next to him every night, though. I saw parts of him that the pulpit would never let anyone see. She then talks about a turning point, a chat that happened late one night after a conference. That's when, according to her, Carlton finally admitted to having an inappropriate relationship. She says that instead of repentance, what happened next was a spiritual defense. He is said to have told her that the stress of being shunned by Christians had gotten to him and that connecting with other people was how he dealt with it. She says that moment broke her heart. She didn't leave right away. A lot of women in church marriages stay, and she did too. She hoped, prayed, and even tried to forgive. But over time, the weight of betrayal and spiritual neglect made her feel like she wasn't seen. It wasn't just about lying, it was also about trust. She thought she was making a kingdom with a holy man. She says she was used as a pawn in a story that cared more about appearances than truth. It hurts even more that she says some spiritual leaders told her not to speak out because they thought it would hurt the church or ruin Carlton's legacy. As they told me, people would see me as angry, bitter, and a woman who had been slighted, but they didn't see me as a woman who had been hurt, a wife who had been misled, or a person. And just when you thought things couldn't get any more difficult, Gina told the gospel world something that shocked everyone. She made a secret audio recording of them in the last few months of their marriage. She hasn't released the whole voice memo to the public yet, but it's said to contain a conversation between her and Carlton in which he allegedly admits to changing church stories to hide the truth about their breakup and keep up his public image while their family was falling apart behind the scenes. Some snippets have already started to get around, and if they are true, they could bring up a lot of questions about who knew what and when. They don't want you to know this shocking fact, though. Gina says this was never about getting back at someone. She didn't come forward to get attention or to say bad things about a dead man. She says she's coming out now because his death left her with unfinished pain. This truth was buried for too long under titles, collars, and crowds, she says. I loved him, I truly married him. But good women get tired of acting, just as shocking as Gina Gauthier's news. The fact that no one spoke about her pain for years might be even more upsetting. She said that the silence wasn't just caused by Bishop Pearson, but also by the very places that say they stand for truth and healing. The Black Church has been a strong force in politics, religion, and society for many years. But for women like Gina, that same presence turned into a wall that kept powerful men safe and kept those who were suffering from speaking out. Gina talks about times she reached out to respected church leaders, mentors, elders, and even bishops to get advice, support, and kindness. Instead, she says she was blamed, sidestepped, or denied what she said. She told them that they didn't want to hear it. They told me I had to look out for the church and feel like I was a part of something bigger than myself. But what about my mind and soul? Someone in power is said to have told her that a good first lady knows how to suffer in silence. A statement that shocked, and mentally broke her. Gina's story shows a truth that isn't nice. A lot of religious groups care more about their image than they do about fixing things. The first thing pastors often want to do when they mess up is protect the brand, not hold leaders responsible or care about the people they hurt along the way. When it came to Bishop Pearson, the culture of silence was even stronger because of his controversial religious views. The evangelical world quickly turned its back on him when he started teaching the gospel of inclusion, which rejected the idea of hell and believed that everyone could be saved. Pearson was called a Christian heretic. Organizations pulled away from each other. He was dropped by TV networks. At that time, though, the attention was still on his spiritual disobedience and not on how it affected the people closest to him emotionally and personally. A lot of the time, Gina was just a bystander. Her pain stopped being seen, her voice was ignored, and people outside of church didn't look the other way either. Even people from her church, like the people who called her First Lady and the women who came to her workshops and hugged her after Sunday service. A lot of them went away when the trouble started. She was abandoned twice, she says, once by her husband, and once by the people who said they would help her. People think that the church is a safe place for women, but we're told to pray it away, keep quiet, and smile through the pain too often. That's not safe. That hurts your heart. She recently told me this, and this is where it gets even more sad. Gina says there were times when she felt bad about not forgiving her husband more, asking him, and giving in the way the church so often expects of women in ministry. She was stuck in a circle of silence and self-doubt because of this guilt until Pearson's death made her face what she had been avoiding for so long. Some people on the church board and spiritual leaders also knew about the problems in her marriage, she said. They were told about the cheating, the aloofness, and even the voice records. She says the message was the same every time, though. Do not go public. Don't mess up his mission. Keep a black man's history alive. Gina says this kind of talk is part of a bigger problem in religious places where people value platforms over people and titles over truth. She has been carrying that weight in silence for years, but now she has chosen to change things. I did, Gishin.